Hello and welcome to In the Flow with your spiritual CFO, Robin Wilt, and myself, Jessica Kay. We are very excited to talk about the eclipses. And right now, we're in the middle of two very powerful eclipses, along with a very powerful time to be alive on Earth right now. So, we had to give us an episode for that and talk about how the first lunar eclipse is affecting us and what we might see from the solar eclipse and when we might actually start getting a lot more clarity from all the changes that we're going through. So, Robin, tell us. Tell us
Ooh,
about these eclipse things.
all right. So it's interesting because we hear all of these things and we know about astrology, but it's interesting when you sit down and like put it all together. So there's a lot happening right now. A lot in that kind of Pisces and Aries transition. So it's interesting when you think about those two energies are very different. Pisces is that dreamy, watery, kind of intuitive energy, very much in the 5D. And then Aries to me is that, right? It's because it's a fire sign. It's like very action oriented, very much about me, where I want to go, where I want to head. So moving from that very Piscean kind of spaced out energy at times into that more action oriented and having that clarity, it's a word that you and I keep using. I feel like it's a word I've been using like in my own personal journey for the last, year or so, like asking for clarity, asking for clarity. So what you shared as like as Jessica and I were chatting before we went live, um, Jessica was kind of pondering that like as of April 1st, when a lot of the eclipses are kind of winding down, when some of this energy shifts, we are going to start to have more of that clarity. And right, clarity doesn't necessarily mean that everything's going to be okay or that not okay, but like we're still going to have to take steps towards those things that we find clarity on. So we have, as Jessica mentioned, we are in the middle of the eclipse window right now. We had a full moon lunar eclipse on March 14th. So with that, the sun and the moon are opposite. The moon at 23 degrees Virgo, sun at 23 degrees Pisces. And then on the 29th, coming up in a few weeks, we have a new moon solar eclipse where the sun and the moon are right next to each other. And actually, with eclipses, right, that I'm not great at explaining that because eclipses are a little bit different versus like a regular new moon. And if you want to tackle explaining that, you can. But I feel like we want to talk about the spiritual stuff, less about like the um, what's that word? The
Astronomy of it all.
yeah. So
Science.
I'll yeah. And then right now we're also in the middle of Mercury retrograde. So we started on March 13th, going until April 4th. We started the retrograde for Mercury in Aries. We're going to be going into Pisces. So right, it's going to go backwards, Aries into Pisces. And then we have Venus retrograde started on March 2nd, all the way through March 14th. Again, that Aries and Pisces energy. We also have the spring equinox on March 20th, where the sun moves into Aries. It's coming out of Pisces. And then on March 30th, we also have Neptune coming out of Pisces and moving into Aries. And Neptune's a slower moving planet. So I think Jessica said it's been in Aries or it's been in Pisces since 2012. Is that correct? Yeah. So lots of different energy shifts. We're going to talk about what all of this means. Um, but a lot of it is between that energy of Pisces and Aries. So I have all the dates and everything. Jessica, what are you feeling with all this information?
Yeah, so it's like let's like lots of good information. Great for those of you that want to kind of pause through it and look at what that looks like in your chart. So what do we do with all the information Robin just gave? Well, one of the things I like to do is pull a transit chart for when that eclipse is in my hitting, like what's the time and date and how is it transiting my chart. There's also this really cool feature I didn't know about But in my galactic astrology community, Julia Balaz explained it to us. It's called an impact. So if you go into
Well,
AstroSeek, they have a eclipse impact chart, and it kind of shows you where it is, and then it spreads out like where is it impacting, and it overlays it on your chart so you can see where is it impacting your chart. Beautiful. So a couple different ways to look at it. And then all of that to say, we're going to unpack it a little bit. So for those who are like, I don't feel like going and getting my chart, but tell me about eclipses. So one of the amazing things that Robin was talking about is we have Pisces and Aries. Pisces is in the 12th, house. So it's like we're ending, and then there's Aries. So right now we're in endings, like the ending of the endings. Things are being let go of. So the moon eclipse was in our south node, our collective south node. So that's huge. It's all like it's this theme that's like lifting out, like moon eclipse, south node, Pisces is all about ending, 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 ending on a really big scale. So a lot of things are coming to an end. And then when we're stepping into Aries, beginnings, 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 beginnings. So that's where it's interesting. Like you said, for the last year, we've been asking for clarity because we've been in this Neptunian like bubble since 2012, and we want to move forward. It's like, okay, we've worked through this cycle, we've been in the illusion, and now we can feel those urgings from Aries. Like we can feel that energy coming, and we want to start moving forward with every, now that we've let go, we're out of this illusion, like give me clarity so I can move forward with my life. Um, One of the other interesting things too that I heard recently was about retrogrades. So I actually have several retrogrades in my chart, in my natal chart. And I was like, oh, what does this mean? And somebody said, actually, like when you have retrograde, so I actually have Mercury retrograde. When you have retrogrades in your natal chart, when those retrogrades happen and the whole world is turned upside down, you're like, oh, this is my jam. Like I've got it. So it's kind of like retrogrades in your natal chart are a superpower to work through when things are kind of wonky. So you can see, like, if you're somebody who's like, yeah, the retrogrades never affect me, then there's a high chance that you're going to have some of that in your chart. So that's like the big themes. Like when I look at this, it's like huge change around endings, and then we're moving into beginnings. And that's like, yes, I can feel it. I want it. My birthday's actually on the March 29th solar eclipse. So very excited for a variety of ways. Yep. And then also this Neptune energy. It's like all this stuff is happening, and then Neptune finally goes from Pisces to Aries on what do we say, March 30th. So it's not going to stay there the whole year. It's going to go back into Pisces the end of or in October, and then finally be fully in Aries in January of 26. But we get a little bit of a respite so that like illusory uh planet is going to help us start moving forward. And it's about like moving forward with a new vision, moving forward with a new dream. So for anybody who may have been feeling like overwhelmed by all this Piscean energy, because it also can be energy of the victim, it can be the energy of kind of the collective unconscious. So lots of emotional people can be feeling very overwhelmed by all the emotions, all the water. If you think about all the water things that are going on, there's an opportunity for that. So kind of moving from that into fire movement. And for me being in Aries, like I'm like, yes, let's get moving. Give me that clarity, I want to do it. So yeah, that's my first round of thoughts.
yeah. This is coming through to share, so I'm just going to share it. But, you know, Neptune likes being in Pisces. Um, so it's not like all of that period was bad, especially over a 12-year period, or how many years is that? 13 years. Like, so many things can happen in your life during that time period. So it's also like it can be a lot of intuitive insights or downloads that you get, but then kind of being able to sift through those. Like what I've noticed for me is um, because I'm so open energetically, when the energy is open like that, it can actually be hard for me to distinguish between what is intuition versus like what is a thought that I'm having or what's a fear that's coming up. So that's been another thing that's just been interesting for me to kind of notice because I had a situation in my life for the like last year and I would have these really beautiful like, oh, this is like such a beautiful situation. And then 2 days later, I would have this horrible dream, that was like very contradictory. So it was interesting to see, oh, okay, that's my fear that's coming up. It seems like an intuitive insight, or it seems like I'm getting clarity, but actually, like it's driven based off of my fears or my shadows. So, um, right, as with all things, we need to find that balance. So, as we move more into the Aries energy, it's like, maybe slowing down a little bit before you immediately jump into something. Aries energy is kind of that like act first and think second. Um, so especially since we have the Mercury retrograde kind of overlapping it for a few, like let's say a week or two. So the equinox is on the 20th, and Mercury is in retrograde until um, April 9th. So giving yourself that time of like, okay, let me actually think about this and reevaluate it a little bit. Yes, I got this clarity, but when do I want this to happen? What time period do I want this to unfold? I have this clarity and this insight, but knowing like it's the beginning of the cycle, right? It's the beginning of the astrological new year. We have this new mini eclipse on the 29th, which can activate a lot of things in our lives. So yeah, just giving yourself that time in that space, right? Also, eclipses are really powerful energies that can kind of come in and shake up our lives in a lot of different ways, depending on how they affect you astrologically. I know that I've had a lot of big shifts the last probably couple of weeks. Some of them were like very unexpected. Um, so knowing that again, like just because something is making itself known to you, it doesn't mean that it's all going to be done in like a week, right? It's energy that kind of activates or shows you like what's possible, and then will continue to kind of unfold. Right? There's different timelines that we can use for eclipses. Like sometimes we talk about 6 months. Sometimes you can talk about, well, when's the next time that you have this big astrological event, like in that sign in your chart. So, right, there's different. Sure, there's lots of different ways to look at it, but just know that things still might kind of be um, like they might still not have fully landed yet, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and you bring up a good point is like the timing of all this. So, yes, we had the lunar eclipse on the 14th of March, and we're having the solar eclipse on the 29th of March. So, we're actually like in this kind of time in between. We're in this void. And that's where if you feel like even more like you have no clarity, you have no clue what's going on, and with it being right around an equinox, like that doesn't happen often. So these eclipses are happening with an equinox in the middle. The next set, September, happening with an equinox in the middle. So like that's a big deal. And it makes it a very powerful time to have all three of these points together. So for me, it's like, okay, well then what are the energies around this? And it's like, what do I need to let go of to be able to have that new start? What has been holding me back that it's finally time to let go of? And these are the energies, like we're being held in this kind of cosmic womb, of time where it's like, okay, what in this period of unknown, let's do some introspection and let's look at what finally like what needs to let go, what have we not been able to let go of, and now let's let go of it because the energies are going to support us in doing that, knowing that in a few weeks time we're going to be able to start moving forward. And that's where it's baby steps, because you don't go from stopped or kind of like uncertain to like Robin was saying, you don't want to start running full speed because you could be going in the wrong direction. So just start taking those small steps as we step our way into clarity, and then allow the universe to meet you. And we're going to be feeling the effects of these eclipses over the next 6 months. So it's like we're having these huge changes, things are falling away, we're able to move forward, and that's going to affect us for 6 months. So like that's the deal with eclipses. Usually it's a couple week period of time and they affect you for 6 months, and then the energy is going to shift radically again with some more eclipses, and then it's going to affect you over 6 months. So that's for me, knowing that it's like, okay, this is when I want to shed for a couple of weeks, and this is what I really want to start moving into, and keeping that as like the intention in the back of my mind, like baby steps, baby steps, baby steps. If I take baby steps over the next 6 months, look what can grow. For me, it's in my 10th house. So I'm like, yay. Like, this is my business. This is how I'm seen in the world. So I'm going to take baby steps to move towards really what I feel in my heart is my vocation and making that more of a reality and clarifying like anything like what has been holding me back? Where am I kind of confused? What do I need to clarify about my business to help me move forward? So it's one of those things where there's energy. The eclipse has an energy. If you decide to kind of hop on board and go with it, then that energy is being used to help you. But if you don't, then you're going to go through the cosmic like tumbler. The energy is going to come at you. Like there's a certain amount of it. You can either actively use it up for positive, or you can kind of get taken away by it. And that's one of the reasons. One, I'm kind of an intense person. I've got my Scorpio moon anyways, but I really like to like these really intense things, eclipses, black holes, like I glom onto it and like show me your power and how can I use that to transform my life. And that's
Mhm.
really this is a very powerful eclipse. Like eclipses are powerful. This one is a big deal. So be curious about the power of this eclipse and how it can transform your life and launch you into a really successful next 6 months.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like I had a pretty big um, situation happen on the eclipse day, and it was something that I partially wanted, but something that I was also very surprised by. And it was interesting to see like all of the emotions that came up. And, sometimes it is, which is so much of life, right? Like having to surrender to what's coming up and then balancing that with your personal will. It's because ultimately, like if we think that we live in a loving universe and that these things are happening for us and that we're going to get to learn and we're going to get to grow and expand. Um, but it can be hard, right? So be gentle with yourself, like moving from a very watery energy like Pisces into that more action or fiery energy. Like, you want to just make sure that you're being gentle with yourself, that you're monitoring your nervous system. Because right, it can be that like, oh, we're just in flow and we're just gonna go with everything to okay, like now here I have all this fiery, like let's get shit done. Um, let's just kind of talk about like all of these energies as a whole. If we think about the month of March and then kind of halfway of April, right? So we have the eclipses, we have Mercury, the planet of communication, our thought processes, local travel, contracts, and then we have the energy of Venus retrograde. So Venus is the planet of love, relationships, money, self-worth. Then we have the sun moving into Aries. So it's the start of the astrological new year. And then Neptune moving from Pisces into Aries, which, is like we notated that hasn't changed in 13 years. So, um, kind of looking at these energies as a whole, it is a lot around, or it could be a lot around our day to day life, right? How we kind of perceive relationships, how we perceive ourselves, how we think about these things. That's something that I've learned so much of the last year. Like we know that our perception affects how we act, but when you really start to see that, you're like, oh, holy shit! Like I'm acting in a way that's based on my fear, or that's based on these old thought programs that I have. So while we're in this time period, using that energy to your benefit of like, well, maybe where in the past was I allowing that Piscean energy and that illusory energy, because it can definitely be a lot around illusions and like how our perception kind of colors things. Um, how can I allow those old things to fall away? Like what um like through therapy or shadow work or whatever it is, like allowing yourself to really purge those energies as much as you can over the next couple of weeks. And then noticing like what do you want to believe moving forward? Um, how do you want to approach life? How do you want to kind of take, oh, there's a little kitty out back in the woods. I always love it when animals show up as little confirmation. Um, right. Cats are very independent. Like they're very flowy, but also like very much like FU, kind of Aries vibes.
They're
So
Aries and Pisces, right? Very intuitive and very fiery.
yeah, I love it. Um, yeah, so just kind of noticing where you've allowed these old energies to affect your life, and then also knowing that, right, so much of where I believe our free will comes in is how we perceive things, how we look at life, how we choose to respond to life, because so much of it we don't have any control over. We do and we don't. Um, yeah, have you noticed any big themes like as we've been talking about this energy for the next month and a half, Jessica, or month now that we're in the middle of March?
Well, you mentioned different ways that we can work with this energy. So, of course, me, I'm very like, let's contemplate, let's meditate, let's make some goals, let's set some intentions. There's also the softer side of that. And our last podcast was on forgiveness. So,
Mm.
forgiveness is a great way to heal those wounds that have been holding us back, along with doing work around our limiting beliefs. And that's one of the things that's been coming up for me for a little bit now, maybe 3 or 4 months, but very much so like you talking about it's like, oh, this is the perfect time to go through and identify those limiting beliefs and start shifting them because we're in, limiting beliefs live in our unconscious. We're still in that Pisces energy. So let's use that to help us uncover what's in our unconscious. And then we can even move forward more. And I would feel better, especially with you talking like, I am Aries, so I'm like, yay, but you're right. It's like, think before you act, those kind of things. I will feel much more certain in my actions if I know that I've shifted some of those beliefs that may have affected the way I interacted before. The other thing too is like I know Mercury is going into Aries, which then makes me think about like the fiery mouth, right? So not only think before you act, think before you speak. So, adding in the pause. I'm a big fan of the pause. Pausing and allowing. So that's what we've been learning with this Pisces. We've been surrendering to the flow. There's a lot of lessons that we've learned with Pisces and all these different planets in Pisces and the different flavors that they bring. So let's use that as a strength for when we move into Aries. It's like that ending, those endings need to be there, but also that flow, that surrender. Let's bring that into the Aries. So when that big jolt of energy hits you, it's like, okay, where can I move? That's really helpful. And then maybe I don't need to move in some of those places that I've let go of. So
Mm.
just because we've done that work doesn't mean it's not going to show up again and say, are you sure? You can say, yes, I am sure. I do not want that. Like I am moving forward in these different ways. So lots of being kind to yourself. Don't give yourself a hard time because yes, like I can't tell you how many times I have worked on a lesson and I get to learn it in a deeper way, or it just helps me reaffirm where I'm at. It's like, no, I'm not gonna do that anymore. Like it's still showing up so that, there is some kind of frequency alignment, but it just gives me an opportunity to say no to what I don't want and yes to what I do want. So really that choice, remembering that we have all of these energies here, supportive, sometimes challenging, but we do get to make choice. We get to pause and make that choice. And we get to deeply nurture ourselves, especially as we're going through that transition. So, if nothing else, if you take nothing else from this podcast, we are transitioning from some very watery, emotional energy into some very fiery, like hot, quick energy. And it's going to be happening like yes, like pretty much April 1st, we're going to be in a lot of that fire, but give yourself the time, even maybe an entire lunar cycle to adjust to what this new energy is bringing in, because you could be getting spurts of energy and then feel completely tired. There could be, inflammation. There's a lot of different things, that fire can do for you. So be kind and gentle and allow yourself to move into this energy, to step back when you need it, to, retreat, relax, self care. journaling, meditation, Epsom salt baths, whatever it is that feels nurturing to you, dive into that. And now's a great time to start with that before we get all that fire going. Like having a routine around self-care is so transformative. And both Robin and I are shifting into a place where we're probably going to be in an office environment, and that's going to be a huge impact for us. And how are we, we were talking about scheduling. How are we going to schedule our self-care, those important things? But that's where we are in the middle of this space of the eclipses is things are changing drastically in our day-to-day life, and we want to make sure that we take care of ourselves. So what does that look like? How can we have a little bit more structure so that we have meaningful time? And how can we also create some unstructured time so that we don't feel so boxed in? So that kind of flexing. And, with the South Node and North Node, Pisces, you know, it's about finding that balance. These
Mhm.
eclipses between moon and sun, where do we find the balance in the middle? So it's a lot of finding the balance, integrating both ends and finding the balance in the middle. And that's really what the equinox, like huge lesson, equinox is the balance between. So that's a good day to have, meditations, very powerful day to kind of seek some of those insights on how do we find the balance in the midst of really active times.
Yeah. So the other thing that keeps popping up that I want to share is like, I feel, and right, I feel like, so Jessica and I were chatting about this the other day. The reason I love astrology so much is because you can always be learning more. So, right, I have disclaimer, I've been studying astrology maybe for like 8 or 9 years. Um, so right, I'm not somebody who's been studying for 30 years. I don't know everything by any means, but I think it's funny when you see things online about the retrogrades, like don't make any big decisions, don't travel, don't do this, don't sign contracts. Well, it's like if I'm buying a house and it fucking sorry, it happens to fall in the middle of Mercury retrograde, I'm shocked. I think that's maybe the first one I've let fly, which is good for me. I'm just like, maybe I've chilled out on my potty mouth. Um, life has to continue. Like life is always moving forward. Just because we have these planets in retrograde doesn't mean that you can't continue to live, that you can't continue to have these things that are going to come up. Because I literally, I had something, that if you kind of look at that old school way of thinking about it, I should not have made a decision on the eclipse day. And I'm like, it felt right to me. I prayed about it. I connected with my intuition. It's like, I still have to continue on with life, right? So if you're seeing things online that are like, don't do this or don't make a decision or don't take that person back if they come back into your life during Venus retrograde. And like everything's a learning experience, right? So even if you were to make a decision during retrograde, or you were to allow somebody to come back into your life, or you had to travel, or you signed a contract, right? Everything is happening for you to learn and to evolve. So cut yourself some slack, try not to, because having that attitude actually towards it can make it like you can actually
Manifest it.
create more of an issue for yourself, because you're putting so much of that worry and fear onto the situation rather than just saying, okay, I trust myself. Let me make this decision. Um, so that keeps coming through to share with y'all. Like I haven't seen that in my own life. Things kind of move when they're supposed to, or that's how I look at things. So again, if you have something come up during the eclipse window or during the retrograde, and then you see online like, oh my God, I shouldn't have made that decision, or oh my God, I shouldn't have gone on vacation or whatever, like it's okay. Just trust that you're held, trust that you're supported. You might have delays. You might have, like, I've noticed when I've traveled during Mercury retrograde that, and not all of them, it depends on where it hits me in my chart. Because that's the other key, right? Just because it's a Mercury retrograde, it could be affecting actually another area of your life that has nothing to do with travel. Um, so yes, just be mindful of that. Like take everything that you read with a grain of salt and like tune in with yourself. Is this actually a message for me from the divine, or is this something that I'm gonna like put myself into this state of fear and like freak myself out and actually create the thing that I'm worried about because I read this post online. What do you have to say about
I
that,
say I
Jessica?
love it. I'm like chomping at the bit over here because, my main gig is sovereignty. Like that's what it's about. So yeah, there's all kinds of information and opinions and, they may have whatever. May work for 95 people out of 100, but more often than not, I'm one of the five. And I want to be one of the five. So that's where when we see something, once again, we're going to go back to the power of the pause. And I'll give a little shout out to Gene Keys right now. They have an app called the Triple Flame app. It's free and it actually has a timer in it. So it'll ding you throughout the day to pause for 3 minutes. And it'll tell you like 3,000 people are pausing right now. There's different meditations and stuff in it. I love it. Um, Pause. When you see something, pause. How and even sometimes I can see something immediately like, nope, not today. That doesn't resonate with me. Or yes. So, one, does this actually resonate with me? Is it instilling fear and causing me to contract? Or am I expanding? Or is it neutral? So, I have learned to tap into my own like intelligence, my own wisdom. And I actually less and less am seeking like outside information. And when I do, I'm like, okay, well, it's like we've said in here, listen to us chat, be entertained. If you don't like it, then just let that go. Like, not everything we say is going to resonate with everyone. And that's okay. Like, I'm just speaking my truth and my own awareness and what comes through. And the most important thing is that we know what our own wisdom is and that we're aligned with that. So when you're like, yeah, I don't like that, or I like some of it, but not all of it. Yes, that is being able to have discretion in what you're taking in. And it's like when we can do that with information, then it's like we get to do that with energies. Like, I don't like that energy, but I like this energy. So, like, it is good to have discretion. We need to have discretion and we need to be aware of our own truth. And for me, that's another piece of it too. It's like, oh, I don't like that. I may not have ever had any thoughts, like it may have never crossed my mind, but I hear it and I don't like it. And it's like, okay, now I know that's in the nope. And so I have a new level of awareness about my own truth. So that's what I encourage everyone to do. Like, pause, determine what's best for you. Like, there's even times, like, I'll be at the supermarket and I don't know if I want something or not. So I'll just stop because there's so much, right? There's so much energy. It's like, okay, let me stop. Do I really need this thing? Do I really want this thing? Sometimes I'll say no, and the person behind me will come and pick it up. And it's like, that wasn't even mine, right? Like, I'm so open, like, there's stuff moving through. So, is that even my thought? Is that even my desire? And it actually, funny note, happens a lot with my husband and I. He loves to eat sweet things. And I'll be sitting on the couch and I'll get this hankering for something. I'm like, where did this come from? And I used to like go and get something sweet. So I'm eating sweets a lot. And I realize if I just kind of wait a little bit, like he'll get up and get something sweet and my cravings will leave. So it's just like fascinating, even in like relationship or even in your own home. Like, is this really me? Even with my dogs, I'll be like, oh, I want to go outside. Next thing you know, the dogs go flying out. It's like they needed to go outside. It really didn't. So getting real clear. And for me, because I'm so empathic because I have such a strong like ability to kind of bring things through. I ask that question a lot, especially in the beginning. I've been doing this for maybe a year and a half with human design. Like, is this me? Like energy testing, like, is this mine? Is this a yes or a no? And because I've been doing that, I'm more clear about my own voice. So now I'm like, yeah, that's not me. Like I know. I don't even have to like energy test. I don't even have to, like, that's not me. So I'm getting more clear about what is self and what is not self, and just allowing, like, now there's automatic things that just start happening where I'm not even responding to things that aren't me. And I'm really like just moving in the direction of things that are me. And it feels so good. It feels so good. So, all of that to say, don't listen to the fear, as they say, the fear porn. Just don't. Like, cut it out. And I'm on a little rant right now. Give me one more thing to say. I also have stopped just having things playing in the background. I grew up in where, you always had the radio on or there was a TV, like there's always something running. That's putting information in. I realized it would get me overstimulated, and then if it's like not good or it would give me anxiety. So now, especially with news, or anything political or anything like that, I only consume it like by reading it. Like I will stop if I feel like I want to do that. I will stop and I will give myself a little bit of time to just kind of take in what I want, skim it, and not allow it to just like run through my mind and like the sound, like have it running through my being like that. And that has been a way that I can still pay attention if I want to, but I'm very much more in control of the information that is coming to me. And I'll listen to podcasts and audiobooks, YouTube, like stuff like that, but I've chosen it. Like I specifically want this. And I know like there's certain things I can listen to passively, like in the background. And I know like the content there is going to uplift me. And there's other things that I will only listen to if I'm paying attention and do one thing at a time. So just really paying attention to how we're intaking noise, information, news, and making sure that we're not overstimulating ourselves by doing multiple things at once and really kind of getting our nervous system on high alert because that's not going to be helpful.
I think that's the other that could be so much of this energy shift too that we're experiencing. Like, is right because we've gone from that Pisces, like being so open to everything, having to like learn, is this mine? Because it's something I've also like, it's been such a thing in my life. I think for a lot of us people that are energetically sensitive, it's like that's a good question to ask. Like, is this mine? It's like bringing that energy of curiosity to it because then when you do that, right, that Pisces energy, and then you move into the Aries energy, it's like, oh, this is mine. And then also like, how do I want to respond to that? How do I want to move forward? The other thing that's coming through is such a big thing in our lives is like social media. There's somebody, and this happens a lot to me. Like, I'm not on social media a ton, but I've gotten I used to be much better with like not getting on it, but lately I've just been bad at like first thing in the morning I'll start scrolling or like watching videos or I like watching funny videos. But there's this person that every time they would pop up on my feed, like I would start to feel bad about myself. And today I was like, why am I following this person? Like, so I just went and I indebted like unfollowed. But so many clients and like so many people that I talk to, it's like, oh, I feel like shit about myself after I'm on social media. It's like, well, why? Like, stop looking at either that content or stop following that person or put limits on how often you're doing it or like make sure that you're clearing your energy afterwards or that making sure that you're like being mindful of, okay, I felt fine and then I went onto social media for 5 minutes and now I feel like I need a facelift and a whatever like be mindful about how those energies are affecting you because there's so much energy that's constantly bombarding us, whether it's, if we're on our computers or if our phones, right? Like even if you're not getting things on your phone, like the energy is still there. Um, and when you are energetically sensitive, like you're gonna be more aware of that but I think all of us are to an extent, honestly. I think it's just whether or not we're aware of it. And again, some of us probably are more than others, but now could be a really great time to reevaluate that with Mercury in retrograde and Venus in retrograde. It's an opportunity to kind of reevaluate those areas of our lives. Like, why am I putting myself in this situation that makes me feel less than? Why am I engaging in this friendship? Or why am I communicating in this way if it makes me feel like crap about myself? Like, how can I change that moving forward? And it is a really great time for reevaluation, for just getting that clarity, like meditating or writing, like Jessica was saying, and just being curious about, okay, I've noticed that I feel insert whatever emotion 80% of the time in this situation. Like, okay, well, is that a me problem that I get to look at? Is that something that's being triggered in me that I get to heal? Or is that like truly the situation like actually isn't in resonance with me? And you can ask the universe for signs. Just ask, like, do I need to release this friendship? Um, do I need to work on my beliefs? Whatever it is, kind of ask the universe, like, hey, I'm not sure about this. Like, give me a sign, give me clarity around this thing that I'm kind of pondering in life. Because the universe will give you signs. You may not be able to immediately. Sometimes I'm like, could you just like give me a billboard and like spell it out for me? Yeah.
Like that is my number one like piece of advice is louder. Just please tell me louder. Make it very clear. Like I need to hear it. Like, and I've also set intentions with my career, my day job. Don't allow me to take any position that's not meant for me. So I used to be like every interview I went to, I would get the job. Like it was, and it was because like I was aware of where I needed to be. So it wasn't just like I'm super lucky, but I was very clear. And then there got a point in my career where I was like, I want to climb the ladder and I want to be at this space in the organization. And I think it had to do with ego, like definitely. And also it was luckily, luckily I'm not there. So I would show up and wasn't picked for jobs. And I would try to network, what are all the little tricks you need to do to get the job? And it like, no. Um, and that's where my guides were like, do you remember when you told us not to let you take a job that you shouldn't? It's like, yes, thank you. So I've kind of implemented some fail safes, like don't let me do it and be real clear. And sometimes the information will just come right through and I'm like, bloop. And other times like louder, louder, louder. I need it louder. And I also like have asked for things to show up like more than once. So most recently I had like a work thing that I've been dealing with for like 12 years, this kind of pattern. And then it showed up outside of work and I was like, oh, it used to be that I needed to see it like 3 times. And I was like, this is definitely a Jessica thing. It's not the other people. And now it was just like two. It was like the same behavior in one situation and another. And I'm like, ooh, okay, then I need you to help me let go of this. And it was so fascinating because I had this strong desire to shift this pattern. And essentially, instead of like sitting there and ruminating, because that's what I would do is like ruminate and get my feelings hurt and, have opinions and, well, this is just, astrological sign behavior, like whatever it was I was telling myself. And what happened was I said, wow, do I have the ability to let this go because I see it happening? And I was like, yeah, I really want this to shift. Like, I really don't want to get all grumpy about this and create a narrative. And the universe just like hopped on board. And then I got busy doing things I really like to do throughout the day. And it kind of showed up again at the end of the day. And I was like, wow, there's no energy behind those feelings any longer. So it just felt so good to see like when we see something show up, and it's like I see myself doing the thing and I really want help to not do it anymore. Like I want to be done with this. Help me. Then it just happens. And then it's like at the end of the day, and that's where I'm like, help me and remind me that you helped me. Like I want to see the magic. And I was like, hey, remember when you were really upset about this morning? And like now you don't care? Yay! Like, yes, I do remember. I was wanting to get jacked up about it. And now, like, yep, I'm just being me. And a friend of mine gave me this great phrase, let them. So, like, I have this critical, judgy aspect of my personality, and it will just get on a tear, like, And so now, especially at this time between the eclipses, when that comes up, and I'm like, let them. Like, I'm not going to judge them. Let them be who they are. Let them, let them, let them, let them. And that's just allowed me to like internally give people grace because, I can show up. I'm a very kind person, and there's still this like spiraling in my head. And instead of feeling bad about it, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be soft with it. Okay, let them. Like, let them. It's okay. Like, let's be nice and kind. So little phrases like that, little, that's the other thing too. Like, show me, like, send people in my way to give me little tricks that will help me shift my behaviors and the way I interact with the world. And I love it. So I'm like, yes, people are saying something like whenever I have conversations with people, like, I'll write stuff down, like, and I'll tell them, that was so great. I love it. I'm going to use that myself. Thank you. So I've just really tried to shift everything in my life to be more gracious with myself, with others, and more recognizing of the impact that other people have on me. And also being aware of the impact I have on people because, I'm like, I'm just me. Like, what's the big deal? But my opinion matters. So I've got to be a little bit softer and not be so judgy and not, be harmful in my interactions. So that's been a lot of what's opening up for me during this time. And I feel like I'm getting traction with it. I feel like the universe is meeting me with that and allowing me to soften and open and see those higher frequencies and qualities in myself, like in a more fluid way.
I love that. I think like for those of us who have been on our conscious, I think we're all on a spiritual journey, but for those who have like consciously been on a journey the last 10 years or so, I feel like that shift has really been happening, which is so cool, to see all that work that you've put in to like actually see it in the physical. I've really had those moments lately where I'm like, wow, like I would have responded much differently, 6 months ago or 6 years ago. So, right, if you need to be reminded how far you've come, just ask the universe. Like you'll have those insights, you'll have that clarity, because it can be hard, like when we have these big times of change, to think, oh my God, like I'm never going to get there. I'm still struggling with this thing. Like, why is this still an issue for me? Um, and the other thing, I love you're so good at that, Jessica, with like asking for that energetic support. So I had a huge realization, I don't know, like maybe a couple weeks ago. So Ganesh can help to remove obstacles and barriers. And I was supporting during a ceremony a couple weeks ago, and they had a huge Ganesh statue at their house. So I've just been working with him. Like when something comes up now, like you guys can go. I don't know a ton about. It's a Hindu um, elephant god. I'm not great at like all the archetypes, but sometimes they will just come to me and like energetically I can feel them. I don't go and research them a lot, so don't ask me like a ton of questions about it, but I know that he can help you to remove barriers. Um, so I've just been calling on him like when I find myself frustrated, like God, why am I still thinking about that situation, or why am I still overthinking, or why am I ruminating? And I've just been, thank you for your support, just talking to him, like, thank you for helping me to remove these barriers. Thank you for helping me to see differently. It really has, like, I've felt like such support and this internal shifting starting to take place when I started to look at it from that perspective. So, we have like so many energies around us that want to help us. You can call on the energy of the eclipse. You can call on the energy of Venus. Like a lot of times when I'm doing healing sessions for people, I will like the planetary energy will come in and I'll specifically call on Venus, like if we're working on love. Um, it's funny because I typically, Pluto and I guess Venus are the ones that usually come through for me when I'm working on people. Yeah, so just remember that you're supported, you're loved, you have all these beautiful energies that want to help you. Jessica, do you want me to pull those cards now? What are you thinking? Anything
I
else you
do.
want to?
I think
Yeah.
that would be great. And I just wanted to say one thing. We on this show probably, well, one, I want to say happy anniversary to us because we've been doing this for a year. So over the last year that we've been doing this, we've talked a lot about like the last 10 years. We've really felt like the spiritual upgrade and Neptune in Pisces. So there is a beautiful example of Neptune in Pisces. Uh, Neptune stayed in Pisces in 2012, but it kind of moved in there in 2011 and went back and forth and then stayed in Pisces in 2012. So yeah, for us, that time period has been a very huge spiritual growth time. So look at that. Like, what has your spiritual growth looked like over the last 10, 13, 14 years? And that's how you can see how these planetary influences are affecting you. Looking back really shows you like, oh, okay, this is what it looks like. Next time it happens, you'll be aware of that. So I always find that interesting. And then, yes, I want you to pull cards. I think that would be fun.
Yeah, and thank you for reminding us to look at Neptune, because I feel like because it is one of the outer planets and it takes so long for it to move through, like you can forget to kind of look at those transitions in your life. But it, like you said, it's a lot of times I feel like with the bigger ones, it is helpful to kind of look in hindsight. It's like, oh, what was I doing the last 12 years, like in that area of my life? So thank you for that reminder. All right, let's see. Angels, spirit guides, what do our listeners, what do we need to know? about this eclipse energy. Sorry, y'all. When I all the energies move and I yawn and I burp. So at least you're not having to hear me burp right now. You're just getting the yawns. All right. So what do we need to know about these eclipses in this next month of transition? Which is funny. Jessica and I actually do a fair amount of this. Like we were supporting each other the other night, and we were combining the eclipse energy with tarot. So that's another way that you can hone in on like what's happening for you. Um, use the other resources that you have. Like if you're trying to understand it astrologically and it's not making a lot of sense, you can always pull in tarot or oracle decks, like whatever it is that you kind of need to help you to fill those gaps. Okay, so we get the Emperor, which is all about, isn't he Aries?
The Emperor is the Emperor Aries or is it Saturn?
I think he's Aries, but I could be.
You might very well be right. Let me look it up.
So we have the Emperor, we have the Knight of Pentacles, we have the Four of Swords, and we have the Star. I like to say swords like that. So let's kind of look at these. I love the
Yep,
two
you're right.
fours.
It is
Okay.
Aries. You're right.
We've been getting a lot of fours lately. Like when you were pulling cards for me the other night, fours kept coming up, and I've been seeing a lot of fours, right? So, and especially with that Knight of Pentacles, like building that building that structure of your life. Like, where do I want this year to take me, right? We're moving into the astrological new year. To me, it's like spring. I always think of that as like all these new beginnings that want to come forward. Um, again, with the Knight of Pentacles and the Four of Swords, it's like slow and steady. Taking that time for rest, taking that time for contemplation. Um, I love like remember I think when we were in tarot school, somebody pointed out, or yeah, I'm telling y'all, Mercury retrograde gets my brain because my sun is in Mercury and my sun is in Gemini. I can't even talk anymore. So it's like remembering those hidden resources that we have. Right, there's three swords on the wall and there's one underneath him. Um, so kind of filling up your tank, filling up your cup whenever you can, making sure that you are finding that peace, finding that just that centeredness, that sovereignty, that word that keeps coming up for the last couple of years. And then where does that move you into? It moves you into the abundance. It moves you into, I always think of like just having a really fulfilled, like bright life with the star, you know, being like your authentic self, being connected both to the stars and to the physical. I think this is Aquarius, right?
Let's look.
Obviously, I don't remember all of the astrological associations with tarot because I thought I remembered the major ones, but
Maybe you may
uh,
be spot. I mean, you were spot on with the other.
yeah. So I love that we have the two major arcana cards, like as the beginning and the end, right? So we start with the Emperor.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we start with the Emperor, um, which is ironic, right? Because we talked a lot about moving from that Pisces to Aries, but in this progression of the cards, we see the Emperor is actually the first one. And then we move to the star. So it's like, as we continue to gain that autonomy and that sense of like, all right, what is actually lighting me up in my life? How can I take those slow, steady
Mhm.
steps to get there? And then how does that allow me to open up and expand in a different way, like in a different way than you did previously? Because it is coming from a more grounded place, right? Pisces can be very like kind of out there in the ethers and not really grounding things onto the physical. So when we're taking this approach that's coming forward, it's like we're grounded, we're finding that sovereignty within ourselves, and then that takes us to a different space of being connected with the higher realms, right? Where we are like, which I think is what we're kind of moving into as a society. It's like finding that spirituality through our bodies and then connecting that with the higher realms. Like, remember for a few years, spiritual people were like so down on our bodies and like, oh my God, like these meat suits. And, you know, it was like a lot of judgment around the physicality of being a human being and like how, we didn't want that and we wanted to like completely ignore it and like just reach spirituality, but you can only be as spiritual as you are grounded in the physical earth. Like you're a human being, right? Like yes, you're a soul, yes, you're a spirit, whatever you want to call it, but we're having this physical experience right now. So how can you continue to come back to that, which then allows you to expand even more and even deeper? So I would imagine, I don't just getting this, maybe some more healing with the body this year. Um, Maybe an opportunity for creating more sovereignty for yourself, um, coming from that really like slow and steady space. Yeah, that's just what's coming through for anybody who's listening. If you resonate with it, great. If you don't, throw it out the window. I'm always a proponent of that. But um, anything you want to share, Jessica, with these
Yeah,
cards or with
I love
anything
the
else?
cards. It's interesting too with that star. Star is one of my favorite cards. It's 17. My life path number is an 8. So it's one of my life cards. And it's this idea of moving through like challenging times. And she's there and she's naked and she's authentic and she's able to stand between the worlds and she's just pouring out this water. So like it's just flowing through her. It's such a beautiful card. And then she's also connected, the Pleiades are in the background. So she's also connected to that higher guidance. And so if you're like, yeah, I want to be more connected, I want to be more aware, I want to, have these insights, it's going to be about being embodied. Because I was one of those people, Robin, who was like, this meat suit, I want out of it. It's constricting. And over the last several years, embodiment has been my practice. And it's so amazing. We chose to be in these bodies. These bodies didn't happen to us. And oftentimes when I'm doing my galactic astrology readings, it's with star seeds. And it's like, yes, you have all of these guides, you have all of these friends and helpers upstairs and you were the courageous and brave one who said, I'll take the body. So remember that. And when I frame it like that, even for myself, it's like, yes, I was the brave and courageous one who said, I will take the body. And I also get to have the experience and the creativity and what it's like to be in this. Because if we can thrive and grow in this level of constriction, like how much more? There are only certain lessons that I've learned in the dark. There's only certain lessons that we've learned under constriction, under struggle, under difficulty. And that's not to say like, everything has to be difficult. That's not true. But it's amazing what comes out of it. It's amazing what gems we can mine from it. So work on that embodiment. This is such a beautiful time to get into the body. And for me, that has really led me to my own inner guidance. If I hadn't been doing the embodiment work for the last several years, I don't think I would have such clarity about what works for me, for my soul and my body. We're together. My soul is riding in this advanced intelligence of the 3D body. It's like, you don't go to a foreign country where you don't understand the customs and you don't understand the language without a guide. Our body is the guide to the 3D. So why are we like giving it a hard time? It's like they just want to keep us safe. They want to translate our experience for us and they want us to have a good time. And so when I started like making friends with my body and viewing it as, who knows what I am way out there, like who knows how I'm coming through as a spirit, but I need a 3D guide. My body is that 3D guide. My body is moving me through this experience, keeping me safe. Like when my, little sensors go off, like, okay, I don't need to be here anymore. The body's saying, let's keep safe. Let's go somewhere else. Or when I really want something, like, oh, that's a nourishing food. Like this is how we keep nourished, which when the body's happy and healthy, when the body's able to play and be creative, the mind is so clear and at ease. So let your mind just, sit in the back of the limousine, let your body drive and relax and let your soul experience what it's like and allow that wisdom to come through and stop wasting your energy trying to control things. And as I say this to you, I say it to myself because my mind and we're doing a lot better, but in the last couple weeks, it's gotten itself all amped up and it's like trying to be a backseat driver. I'm like, remember where you belong in the back seat. Chill out. Let the body drive. So that's just my little kind of some euphemisms, some different ways to look at it, reframe it. and have a different perspective that allows me to be happy, to be more embodied, and as a result really like hear my inner wisdom, follow it, feel very good about the decisions I'm making and where I'm at in my life. And that is all through continuous embodiment and taking care of the body and, being grateful to the body and just like, oh, like it's my best friend. It's always with me. It will always be with me on this journey.
It is our home, right? It's our home on this earth. It's our, no matter where you go, like it's there supporting you. Um, the other thing that I want to share with y'all that I've been trying lately, and I feel like with this Mercury retrograde, this is a beautiful opportunity to do so. I'm also somebody that has struggled with like the overthinking and just feeling like almost overpowered by my mind at times or like overpowered by thoughts, just really frustrated. Like, I'm trying all the things and I'm doing all the tools that I know. And like, I still just feel, like you're always with your mind too, right? So I realized recently is like, oh, what if I made friends with my mind? What if I stopped looking at it as this like thing that I can't get away from, and this thing that's always annoying me, and this thing that's always blah 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 blah. What if I befriended it, and what if I tried to work with it instead of like constantly fighting against it? So just these were like really simple things that we can kind of start to shift our perspective can have like these huge ripple effects in our lives, right? And when we share these things with other people, like you know so much of what I mean, right, we have our individual insights, but then we gain so much clarity by talking to other people or by listening to podcasts or by listening to talks on YouTube because we're all connected. It's like, something that you're struggling with, like if you ask the universe for support, a lot of times like you will come into contact with somebody who can help you with that thing. It's like something that they've also struggled with. And then they share with you like, oh, I've done this tool or I had this insight, and it's really been helpful for me. So leave yourself open to that possibility, especially over the next couple of weeks. The energy is getting the feeling like it's very malleable right now. Um, so yeah, just continue to support yourself in whatever way feels good for you. And we are certainly here for you. If you have any questions, let us know. Jessica, you okay if I kind of wrap it up, bring it home? Bring it on home. All right. Wrap it up. Okay, we're gonna put a bow on it. Thank you all for joining us. Yeah, just taking a moment and sending you all some gratitude. Thank you for spending this time with us. Thank you for supporting us. Also, maybe feeling this energy that we're sending to you, this love and support that we want to provide for you. So, if there's any specific topics that you want to hear about, please let us know. We got good feedback about the forgiveness. So if there's anything that you guys specifically want to hear about or things that, that feel supportive for you, please let us know. You know where to find us, all the information in the show notes and anything else. Yeah, like, comment, subscribe. Don't be, see, I don't even want to call that in. Just make sure you leave nice comments. We've always gotten nice comments, but I always want to tell them like, don't be leaving any mean comments, but nobody ever has. Like I just want
In the
something
highest frequencies for interaction and
yeah.
growth of all of our souls.
Yes. Sometimes I just like to be a smart aleck. Yeah, thank y'all. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time and hope you enjoy this beautiful next few weeks of energetic shifts and support that the universe is bringing forward. Bye.
Bye.
I can see the stars align, dance around the moon every night. And now my eyes are open wide, and the sky has never looked so bright. Now I don't need to see the road to believe, to believe.